Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes, and welcome to Books My Dad, who has a PhD in English Literature, thinks I should read because reading them improves my understanding of good literature. Also known as Gwen aimlessly chatters about real literature. So today, this is actually the first book that I've had recommended by my father that I enjoyed just reading it. It's not that the other books weren't enjoyable to some extent. It's not that there wasn't an interesting intellectual challenge. It isn't that, goodness knows, I thought they were bad books fundamentally on an objective level. But this is the first book where I'm genuinely thinking, maybe I should read some more of this author. And the author in question is Raymond Chandler. The book in question is The Lady in the Lake. This does not, in fact, in any way refer to the Lady of the Lake of Arthurian legend. This is just, I suspect, vaguely referring to it because the formulation of the two words, Lady of the Lake, Lady in the Lake, is familiar. But the Lady in the Lake is a lady who is found drowned in a lake. And this is really quite a pretty cover. I do like this cover. So Raymond Chandler is an author of mysteries, mystery novels, and this is a mystery novel. It's a murder mystery. And this is these are the books about Philip Marlowe, the private investigator Philip Marlowe, and they are set in and happen in the 1920s, 30s, 40s-ish. They're basically at that point in history, and they're set in California, in around LA and its greater environs, and so on. The thing is, it's set at that point in history where you can still get away from the world. Where if you decide to go out to a cabin in the wilderness, you don't have to actively, shut off your phone because you are in a cabin in the wilderness. There is no phone because it's the 1940s and there is no phone. Or 1930s. This seems to indicate to an extent that it seems to imply to an extent that that there is no war going on, so I suspect that this is set in a pre-World War II, but post-World War I period. So, Philip Marlowe gets hired in order to find the businessman Kingsley's missing wife. And in the process, he stumbles into a very complicated collection of issues and problems. There's a doctor across the street who lives across the street from the guy that Kingsley's wife had supposedly run off with, who was accused of murdering his wife, that is, the doctor living across the street from the potential cuckold. And, and it's a very complex web of events. And there's a woman who is found drowned, who is assumed to be the wife of a groundskeeper, only she was pretending to be somebody else because she was trying to keep away from her policeman boyfriend, who is trying to solve other things. It's a very webby book. And So if you're like me and you don't particularly go to the effort of solving mysteries in advance, the ending really does come out to be a surprise when you find out that the dead woman in the lake is not Bill Chess, the groundskeeper's wife. It is, in fact, Kingsley, the business owner, who initially hired Marlowe to find his wife. It's actually Kingsley's wife, who was murdered by the groundskeeper's wife, who was pretending to be somebody else when she was the groundskeeper's wife, but was in fact another person entirely, a nurse who worked with the doctor whose wife was also killed. There's a lot of dead women in this book, and that one other guy who was also killed. And this is very much a book where, as you go through it, how everything fits together continues to not really make sense because you have all of these pieces sitting around, and Raymond Chandler makes sure that the pieces fit together. There are books, there are some books where you see a bunch of pieces and they never connect together. And unless an author handles that correctly, that's usually not a good thing in a book, because if you have a book like a murder mystery where there are all of these people who are interconnected in various ways and two murders, it's usually expected that those murders and those people will connect together. And when they don't, if it's not handled right, it feels like the author wasn't trying. In any event, the one good thing about this book is it is very much a hard-boiled detective book, and there's a lot of short sentences, a lot of snappy sentences, a lot of it's very not analytical, but to the point. That that what Chandler is doing here when he's writing this is he's focusing very hard on narrowing down to what it is that Philip Marlowe is looking at right now, what he's analyzing, how he's approaching people. And so it's not a wordy book. It's not a book where you've got a lot of complex writing. It's a book where the writing is solid and immediate and focused right on the present. Now, Marlowe is clever in that he tells a lot of half-truths. He tells a lot of fibs. He says, and they're not lies. They're dancing around the truth. They're avoiding saying certain things because he's trying to find out information by leaving holes in stuff. At the end of the book, it does do the cliche of getting a whole bunch of people in a room together and getting one of them to give themselves away, but what Marlowe is doing in a lot of cases, like at the end of the book, he got sent to meet Kingsley's wife and give her some money because she had called Kingsley and asked him to please give her money. And he was given a particular distinctive scarf of Kingsley's to wear in order to meet her. And when he meets up with her and they head back to her room so that they can talk about things in private, the two of them she tries to shoot him, and the two of them are attacked by an assailant that Philip Marlowe doesn't see. He basically gets whacked over the head, and when he wakes up, everything is awful. Well, when he's talking to the detectives about what's going on, and they hold up this scarf, and he says, "Yes, that's Kingsley's scarf. I saw it in his office." And he doesn't say, "I saw it in his office because he handed it to me so I could wear it in order to meet up with his wife so she could identify me as the courier." He just says he saw it in Kingsley's office. And they start trekking around trying to track down Kingsley. Now, he does it in order to keep himself from being under suspicion as the murderer, because the woman he was talking to was just found dead. But he does a lot of that. He does a lot of giving people half of what he knows, but not all of it, and holding something back, whether it's because he is trying to, not be implicated in something he didn't do, or because he's trying to catch somebody out. But there's a large portion in this where he'll talk to somebody and he'll talk to them again later and say, yeah, here's this thing I totally didn't tell you at the time. And frankly, it's surprising he only gets beaten up 3 times in this book. I think it was 3 times. By the way, I have to go back to this cover art. This is really, really nice. I mean, it's very 1970s. This particular edition of the book was published in the 70s. The copyright is 1943, but this particular publishing arrangement dates to 1971, and this Tom Adams, who did the cover art, I mean, look at that. That is really, really pretty. I mean, you can see there's the dead woman, there's the dead woman's breast, there's a fish, there's this, this face in the water, and it's this lovely little bit of stylized water reflection there, and then this really pretty background. This is really nice cover art. I like this. I've spent a lot of time lately with books that have plain brown, plain paper, plain whatever covers, and of course the Cat Who books, which are, they're to the point, they do what they need to do, but I would never call them exciting in any way or interesting, but this is really, really nice. I like this. I like all the little, I like all the little details and the way that the face merges in the water and out of it, and it's a nice cover. I mean, like I said, the styling of it is very 1970s. It has some of those hallmarks, because these squiggly lines are very late 60s, early 70s in terms of, how they're shaped and how they're colored. But there's nothing wrong with having something that was stylistically of its time, and certain styles do have their places. You can see this is an older book because parts of the cover have come off. This is actually a book that once belonged to the public library in Toronto. I don't know if anyone has notice this, but a great way to get books that are in not too bad condition for real cheap has in the past often been to go to libraries and to see if the library has a remainder table, because a lot of libraries have, like a lot of large public library systems, a lot of libraries in the past have had places where you can go and there'll be a shelf in the library where you can pay like $0.25 or $1 for their old used books. Because the thing is that with a library, eventually a book starts getting old. It starts showing sufficient wear that a library will have to take it out of circulation. But at that point, it's still good enough for you to keep it on your shelf. Anyways, so I'm recommending it because I think people should, buy library books if the library is selling them, because it's cheap and a good way to get books for cheap, like real books, not ebooks. Anyways, I have now basically run out my time, and I will see you all next week.